Okay, next up we have revealing winning patterns from 500 plus top game creators of 2024. And that's Brijesh from Segwise is going to come up and give us a little talk.
Great talk to follow up on because we're going to put a lot of data to what Mate just spoke about. So what we've done essentially is analyzed a bunch of like a lot of winning creatives from 2024 and tried to find out what parts were actually working for all the top developers that came in through 2024. So yeah, this is kind of what the talk is about. Quick bit about me. I'm the founder of Segwise. Segwise basically helps you analyze your own creatives and tries to find winning patterns in your own creative. So if you're running a bunch of ads and you want to know what elements are working or not working, we help you sort of do that really, really easily because our AI then watches all your ads and tags all of it with the right metadata, and then you can combine that with your ad network data to get insight. So ex-UA person myself worked in InMobi and a bunch of other apps, and that's how we ended up with Segwise. How did we arrive at these winning patterns? We basically took three categories. We took puzzle, because that was the most downloaded category last year. And we took strategy because that made the most amount of money. Simulation was thrown in as well because it came very close to puzzle in the number of downloads. And we took 20 games in each category, the top 10 games with the most amount of downloads and the top 10 games with the most amount of downloads that were new. So we sort of took care of balancing both existing games and new games with for generating these insights. And we made our tool watch all of these ads, watch about 500 ads, and sort of understand what elements are working and not working. And that's how we've sort of come up with this insight. So we're going to largely talk about four parts of a creative. So what's working in the type of creative, what's working in hooks, what's working in the body of the creative, and what's working at the end sort of CTA. Let's just jump into puzzle to begin with. Interesting, like 51% of puzzle games had a text that hooked you in, right? So this was among all the top ads that did really, really well in 2024. 51% of them had some text that would lure you in. And this is important because a lot of times people are watching ads on mute. So having text really, really helps. So, and that clearly shows up in data as well because half of the ads did do that. But what's more interesting is what text was it, right? So our AI was able to figure out that the two most common things that people put as text on their puzzle game ads were instructional videos, like something that helps you understand how the game would be, what you would have to do in the game, or it was more interesting for us to find things that would challenge you. For example, it would say, hey, you cannot win this game, or you're too stupid to win this game. Something that would make you feel irritated a little bit, but want to like sort of prove that you can actually do it was actually one of the winning patterns in puzzles last year. So if you're a puzzle game maker, you should totally copy this, right? Put something out there that would sort of challenge somebody to play your game. 42% of them had a character, right? So it would typically be the character that would be in the game. But what's interesting about this is that 68% of the characters shown in these puzzle games were in some sort of distress. And I think Mate was speaking to you as well, and he mentioned this as well, that most ads portray their characters in some sort of a distress scenario that then you sort of come in and save. How do you do that? You play the game and sort of save the character, right? So that is something that you can copy as well, that if you're making an ad, it's great to show a character that's in some sort of a distress and you make the player sort of come in and save that character that you're portraying in the ad. And this was done by almost 70% of the top creatives last year, so it's something that has been proven to work. So yeah, this is what you do. You ensure that your characters look in distress if you're making a puzzle game ad. Okay, 36% of puzzle games used playables, right? So that's not as interesting, but if you dig deeper into what happens inside, so standalone playables for about 30%, but playable after video is the sort of direction that puzzle games are taking. That if you're doing a puzzle game, you lead with a short video, probably showing your character in distress, and then sort of let the player actually play the game and save that character, right? So this is the kind of patterns that we saw in all of the puzzle game creators that we were analyzing. But yeah, so leading with videos is the way to go in puzzle games, and don't directly throw them into the playable without actually telling them a bit about the game in your videos. Okay, this was interesting. These are trends that we saw are basically things that have not been done by a majority of developers, but we think could be really, really big in 2025. Uh, 27% of ads had a very unique element in them, and these are those elements. So IQ meters. So basically things that showed people getting smarter as they played your game work really, really well in puzzle games. So, and we had about like 55% of winning creatives in puzzles have IQ meters on them. So you should definitely copy that if you're a puzzle game. The other one that did really well is countdowns. So especially in like videos that are like especially in playables, having a countdown sort of brings that urgency into the picture. And if you have a puzzle game playable that you're making, you should definitely sort of incorporate some element of a countdown, which makes the user feel like they have less time to sort of complete that level that you're showcasing in the puzzle in the playable ad. This was interesting as well, that puzzle game tend to sort of do really well if you're able to show depth in the game. Where if the player knows that there are lots of levels that I can sort of play, they're more inclined to download something in the puzzle category. So ensuring, even if you don't have that many levels, just highlighting the fact that there are lots of levels could be really, really helpful to bring down your CPI, because that's something that has worked for a lot of puzzle games last year. Cool. So that's all about puzzle games. Now we move on to the second category, which made the most amount of money in 2024. So if you're doing a strategy game, you should definitely pay attention. Some of the stuff is totally applicable to other categories as well, because it's like something that would work for most games as well. Again, 70% of strategy games ensured that their main character was focused in the ad. So if you have a character-based strategy game, ensure that they're part of your ad. And again, the distress theme continues to play out here as well, that a majority of the characters that were in strategy games were shown to be in scenarios which were life-threatening, right? It could be like a polar bear that's about to kill you, or a large sort of object that is going to fall on your head. Something that makes the player who's watching the ad feel like they need to step in and save the character is something that works really well across genres. And it did so in puzzle, it did so in strategy games as well. Cool. So 46% of strategy games, and it doesn't matter if it was a very complex strategy game, they ended up using these hooks in their ads. So they had horde-based or survival-based sort of themes in their ads to hook the players into actually playing the actual game. The actual game might not have this as a core part of the gameplay, but in ads, these kind of mechanics really, really work. So if you're building a strategy game, you should totally ensure that you have a bunch of ads that are portraying some sort of a horde-based or survival mechanic. So like you have a bunch of examples there, but among all the assets that we saw, horde and survival-based ads were the number one sort of type of ads that did really well last year. And then there is base building, defense building, and gate runner games as well. So these are types of sort of mechanics that really work in ads. So even though you might have a lot of depth in your strategy game, having these as your ad hooks really works for you. So you should just ensure that these are part of the ad sets that you're running. Or you do a fusion, right? So you use a bunch of these assets together. So you could end up trying like a horde survival with a defense building, which a lot of people did, or a horde survival with a gate runner, which is again very popular. And these are all numbers that we have found by actually looking at the games that did really well last year. So these are actually kind of proven tactics that will most likely work for you. So why sort of reinvent the wheel when somebody's already told you that this is working? Awesome. So playables, right? So if you're doing a strategy game, playables are like a big part of what you should be focusing on. But what's working? Only 13% of ads in strategy games are using playables, which we feel is an opportunity. I think we can figure out ways in which you can take out little parts of your game. Doesn't even need to be a very big part of your game, but if you can convert them into core ad mechanics, it might do really well for you, right? But what we found in these 13% was very interesting. Half of them were like standalone playables, but the other half, which was again similar to puzzle games, lead in with a video. Because it might be difficult for people to understand a strategy game right off the bat if you throw them into a playable, it's again really important for you to sort of lead with a video that sets the tone for what the game is about. And then you throw them into the playable. And like I said before, the playable doesn't need to be like the actual entirety of your game. It can be a small snippet. And ideally, it should sort of follow one of the themes that we spoke about, like a horde mechanism or a gate runner mechanism. Okay, yeah. So 100% of playable ads in strategy category ensures that people understand how to start the game, right? So what you don't want to do is throw them into a playable and they don't know how to make the first move, right? So 100% of all ads that we analyzed had something that helped you make the first move. 70% of them had a hook scene text, and 80% of that was instructional. So again, strategy games are hard to digest, which is why they don't see a lot of direct playables being used. But if you're doing them, it's very important for you to ensure that the player understands how to start the game. So having instructional text on top of those creatives is really, really helpful. This is the fun part. 56% of playable ads in this category end abruptly, right? Which basically means that just when the user is getting into the game, the ad ends and it throws you into the Play Store. And that works really well because you've heightened the expectation and excitement of the player, and that's the best time to throw them into the Play Store so that they would go ahead and install the game. So half of strategy games are using this strategy where they end the ad in a very abrupt way and then take you to the Play Store. So yeah, this is a summary of using guiding elements. You need to create a hook scene text which helps them understand how to play, and you need to end it abruptly so that they are left wanting more and they end up installing your game. Okay, the last one is simulation. Again, one of the top categories of 2024 by downloads. And let's quickly give you what worked for them. 80% of all creatives in this category use the gameplay. Again, because simulation is something that is so visual and you can actually represent it really, really well, 80% of the winning creatives last year showed how it plays. I'll give you an example. So this is like the split of how these ads played out last year. So you had 80% showing gameplay, 60% showed the gameplay, but it was animated, so it was not actual real gameplay. It was a heightened, or I would say like a slightly exaggerated version of the gameplay, but it was gameplay nonetheless. Only 8% had UGC. So again, we believe that if you're building in this category of simulation games, we feel that UGC is an opportunity that has not been maxed out yet, but it's an emerging trend you should capitalize on before everyone starts doing it in this category as well. 60% are hybrid, which is again interesting, where they will show you some element of the actual gameplay, but will ensure that there's an element of it which is exaggerated. This allows them to sort of like ensure that you get hooked with the animated part, where they also give you a real taste of what the game would look like so that you don't install and then uninstall, right? So they need to manage both your expectations and get you to install, but also ensure that you don't churn. So which is why they show you a bit of the gameplay, but they hook you in with an animated version of the game. UGC, again, is super underrepresented in this category, which we feel is like something that if you're building in this category, you can capitalize on. UGC hasn't crept in as much as it has in hyper-casual games. So if you're building in this category, you should definitely think about using UGC a lot more. 30% of ads in simulation were playable, a lot more than strategy, because you can actually throw people into this experience and they will figure it out, because simulation games are slightly easier to understand than strategy games. So 30% are already using a playable. But let's tell you what's unique about them. Again, a theory that's sort of playing out in all of these three categories is you lead them in with a video. If you're doing a playable ad, that's kind of how you should do it. You should lead with a video that sort of sets the tone and then throw them into the playable. 58% of ads, again, in this category of playable ends abruptly. Just when the player is about to sort of get into it, they throw you into the Play Store and ask you to do something, which is install the ad. And that's kind of how we are ending this as well. We hope that you go check out Segwise, because this is something that we have done on the top creatives. But if you want to do this on your creatives, we make that really, really easy. Just get all your creative data into one location. Our AI then tags it all for you, and then you can figure out if these trends are playing out in your own assets. If not, we can sort of help you find what's working and what's not working. So thank you so much. I hope this was useful, and you can copy some of this stuff and use it in your own ads. Awesome. We have a few questions. If anybody has one, I'm happy to take it. Anything on the methodology or how the tool can help you out, I'm happy to answer. I'm here. Oh,
Thank you. That was very good. Thank you. Who is making the ads for the developers? Do they need to make these ads themselves, or are you working with them to take their content and make the playable ad for them?
so we don't generate ads. So what we do is, if your ad is already running, we fetch the ad data from the ad networks, and then we fetch the asset also from the ad network. What the AI does is it watches the ad or it plays the ad and captures metadata, so that you can also come up with insights like this for your own creatives. So for example, if I am, let's say, building a puzzle game, and if I have 4 characters that are part of my game, and I want to know which one of them does really well in ads, I would have to manually tag all of my assets with those 4 characters. We can automate that, where our AI will sort of automatically identify character 1, character 2, character 3, character 4, and then it will automatically tell you which one of them does really well for you in the ad. It can be super specific, like you can ask it questions like, which one does really well in the first 3 seconds? Or what needs to happen in the end of the ad for me to have a better click to install? So all these questions become easier to answer for us.